These are my confessions. First, when I thought I said all I could say, man, she gonna say, "Hey, I am RV Alliser, author of Blue Lights, Black Lights, A Little Broken, and constantly writing. Truly, it never stops. And I am participating in 75 Hard, and the part of my challenge is to create 75 videos in 75 days. So, welcome to day 23. Yes, yes. Welcome to day 23. Today's question is, what is my favorite chapter in Blue Lights? Which, like, whew, happy we got here because, man, oh man, we have been going to some dark places lately. That's okay. That's okay though. A good book will take you places. How far I'll go. Anyhow, my favorite chapter in Blue Lights is, I'm gonna talk about Blue Lights because if I were to talk about my favorite chapter in Black Lights, it would be a dark one. Um, but in Blue Lights specifically, my favorite chapter is the chapter of confessionals. This is. Ooh, I don't know the chapter number. Simba, hold that for me. Thinking chapter 12. Nope, I lied. Chapter 11. Chapter 11. Chapter 11 is a chapter of confessionals. This comes like after Major is safe once again, and Dante has gotten him back into the home of the Knox family, Dante's family name. And thank you for holding that. And after Major is clean and fed and wound checked and relaxing now, he, well, now that they're upstairs in Dante's room, he brings up like oh, so I noticed something that like your dad knows something about us, but your mom does not. And this was established at dinner, where this is again after the boys have already like had that initial kiss, recognized feelings for one another, but they have not yet actually talked about it. It was like too much going on for them to have a actual conversation about what was going on. So they just kind of like skirted past that and like dealt with the immediate threat being like, Major stepdad beating them, Major being locked in the basement, Major starving, things of that nature. So dealing with the immediate problems rather than sitting around talking about their feelings. But now that there is no outside conflict, Major suggests that like, oh, now we can like talk about our feelings. And that's what they do. It's a moment in this like tight enclosed space that is known as like Major's window in Dante's room because it's the space that Major has always loved. Dante has this attic bedroom, and on one side of the room the ceiling is like sloped, and there's this small nook where the ceiling is at its lowest point, and there's a window at the end of this nook that is like floor to lowered ceiling. And because it's in the attic, you can kind of just like look out and above the other houses around, and all your problems just kind of feel beneath you when looking out there. So it's Major's favorite place in Dante's room. So they kind of just like go there and have a very awkward but endearing and loving conversation about like how long Major has had these feelings because it comes out that Major has been feeling this way about Dante for much longer than Dante had realized. And although this is my favorite chapter in Blue Lights, this is not like my favorite. My favorite is what spawns from this moment. Because Major describes to Dante, like, well, first off, Dante asks, like, how long? Like, when did you know that, like, this could be more than what it was? And Major was like a year. And this is not in the book. I think I'm actually going to do a separate release of Blue Lights that includes this short story, like at the end. That's like a bonus. But I created a short story about this night that happened like a yearish prior to Blue Lights, when when Major did first recognize these feelings were a bit more than just friendship. And that actually is my favorite. But you have to understand this part in order to understand that. So, we are taking a trip into the past, a year before the events of Blue Lights, and we are in Major's point of view instead of Dante's point of view. One of the reasons why I enjoy this is because you get to actually get into Major's head now and sees the way that he operates. Through Dante's eyes, we see like a lot of confidence, a lot of smiles, a lot of like covering things up, and a lot of quiet moments where Major is like in his head, but we don't really know what he's thinking. But in this short story, we do actually get the chance to see what Major is thinking, where his head goes, and sometimes it's absolutely hilarious. Like, hilarious to us. It's terrible to him, but hilarious to us because the amount of gay panic, the amount of gay panic this boy was going through was hilarious. Oi, but I actually think if you subscribe to my newsletter, you can still get this short story for free. I don't know if I linked my newsletter to my YouTube channel. I should probably do that. It is linked to my TikTok though, and that's just like RV Alistair or Alistair Publishing. I think it's RV Alistair. But yeah, find me on Tickety Tockety and sign up for my newsletter and you can get this short story for free. Anywho, so we start off in Major's home. It's like sophomore year. He's trying to read The Great Gatsby, but he can't focus because there's like a lot of noise going on downstairs. And he always keeps his bedroom door cracked, and so he can listen and hear. And he says like his first line, and the first line of the short story is, I know this house by sound. And he describes how he learned to recognize the sound of every motion, movement, where people are in the house, and he's learned this to protect himself. So he always listens, so he can always stay on guard, so he always knows when he has to protect himself, when he has to fight, when he has to run. And right now, his stepdad is in a confrontation with his mother, and Major contemplates on whether he wants to jump in, like he has in the past before several times. And he thinks about how it always ends the same way, with him taking the beating, her saying that she can't watch this, and leaving the room. And then days later, it's happening all over again because nothing ever changes between those two. So he decides not to help. And he feels bad about it, but he's trying to stay strong on his decision to not help his mother in this moment, because in his mind he's like, I'm getting out of here tonight. I'm going to Dante's house, and I don't want to drag in my problems, drag in my wounds. So you get to see what happens inside of Major's house, inside his head, and the way that he thinks these things through, because he's like, and it shows later on when he does actually get out of the house and escapes and gets to the Knox's door. Dante's dad opens the door and immediately says like, "Come in," like letting out all the warm air. It's wintertime. So he comes in. He immediately takes his shoes off, which when he's at home, he hardly ever takes his shoes off because he never knows when he has to run. Same thing when he's at other people's houses. Like he, it's a safety thing. If he doesn't feel safe, then he won't like fully relax, so he won't take his shoes off because he's afraid that he's always gonna have to like run. But he gets there, he like immediately takes his shoes off, and starts talking to Dante's dad. And Dante's dad's like, I'll let Dante know that you're here." And Major's like, "No," because Major knows that he looks a little shaken up at the moment, that and he doesn't want his like down mood to bring Dante down. And this is when you really start noticing like how much Major pays attention to Dante, because in Blue Lights you see again and again how much detailed attention Dante pays to Major, but you get to see that Major has also been paying attention to Dante as well. So when um, when Dante's dad asks him why he doesn't want Dante to know that he's there yet, Major just kind of deflects but not deflects and talks about and asks Dante's dad, like, did he tell you that he made uh, the drum set for the Christmas concert, the drummers, and them being underclassmen, making a drum set for the Christmas concert is a big deal. And he just went on to talk about like how happy and excited Dante was all day. And Dante's dad concludes that like, oh, so you don't want to like bring him down and ruin his mood with what you got going on right now. And Major's like, yeah. So Major goes into the kitchen. He eats and sits with Dante's mom and offers to help clean up the kitchen since he's eating late. And they have a conversation where he says, I guess I'm the monster this time because I didn't help. And she's like, don't you dare believe that for 1 second. That his mom's problems are her own, and that she's always had the power to correct it, to get out of the situation, but she just chooses not to. And that's not Major's problem. So she helps him like deal with his decisions a little more. And he takes a shower before, throws on some old tight clothes that like don't fit, but he's like, it's fine, I'm just going to sleep. And then he goes up to Dante's room and finds Dante not doing the homework like they're supposed to be doing. Instead, on his computer, putting together a playlist with his noise canceling headphones on, and Major reflecting on how Dante doesn't have to listen out for everything happening in his home. There could be so much going on in his home that he doesn't have to think about because he doesn't have to worry about anything happening to him, because at home he's safe. So he can do things like wear noise canceling headphones and not even be able to hear Major coming into his room. So while he's sitting at his desk, Major just like plops down onto his bed, lays back, and just chills for a moment until Dante does notice him and acts like, oh, hey, how long you been there? and everything's normal, everything brushed over, no asking like why is he there, just accepting and excited that he is there. And after a bit of like joking around, Dante's like, I got this song that I want you to hear. Like, you were the first person I thought of when I found it, or I guess it found me. So he talks about how like he was just listening to music on YouTube and the song randomly started playing, and he started thinking about Major and how Major likes to dance at these parties and stuff. So then he says, I know you'll love it. Then he turns around and he pushes play and plays the song for Major, and then he turns back around and he watches Major because he wants to see like his reaction to the song. And Major like knows that Dante is watching him, but he's not looking at Dante. He's like looking up at the ceiling, listening to the song. And as he's listening to the song, he starts thinking about him and Dante and listening to the song and realizing that like although it's a like upbeat Caribbean style song that you could dance to, once you listen to the lyrics, you realize that it's a love song. And he's like thinking only really about Dante at this moment until he snaps out of it and says, and like thinks, if the person in the song says that like they got it bad, then what the heck do I have, because I haven't stopped thinking about him since the song started playing. Which then starts the spiral. Again, they were reading The Great Gatsby, so like after he listens to the song, they go to Major's window in Dante's room and they read the book The Great Gatsby. They're reading a chapter of it for homework, and they just go like back and forth reading, and it's like the ideal kind of night for Major. Like, this is exactly how he planned to spend his night and how he wants to spend his night, just doing the mundane with his best friend. But it's getting late, so they're on their last question, in which they are trying to figure out if Nick, the narrator of The Great Gatsby, is an unreliable narrator or not, whether he is to be trusted. Dante's like, yes. Major's like, no, absolutely not. And it gets into a conversation where Major says that Nick thinks way too highly of Gatsby. Therefore, in Nick's eyes, Gatsby can do no wrong. Therefore, Nick is an unreliable narrator. And this is like so done on purpose, because The Great Gatsby was one of the novels that I was thinking about when creating Blue Lights, because I like the idea of like the narrator not being the main character, like in The Great Gatsby, or like in a separate piece. But Major then like pulls out this quote for Nick, where Nick was like describing Gatsby's smile, and he's like, "Come on now, ain't nobody looking that hard at another dude. Like, you can't trust this man." So Dante like writes down on his paper like, "Okay, cool, fine, whatever. I'm gonna put down what's going on?" He said, "I'm gonna put down, we can't believe anything that Nick says, because Nick is clearly in love with Gatsby, and I'm going to bed." And Major's like, "I didn't say that he was in love." And Dante's like, basically the same thing. Which the irony is supposed to land, because literally the reverse is happening in Blue Lights, where we have Dante spending almost the entire book talking about Major, yet Major sitting here like, you gotta be pretty obsessed with somebody in order to spend an entire book talking about them. So, for those who got it, got it. For those who didn't get it and watched this video, now you got it, because I told you. Welcome to the inside. But, oh, there's a spider in my curtains. Ah. Anywho, it gets into them getting ready for bed, and as Major's like blowing up his air mattress, he's like kind of drifting off and everything because now he's thinking about not only what was going down in with the song, but he's also thinking about like, oh, the book and the comparisons there, and he's like zoning out, and Dante pulls him out of it like, hey, I know I don't really ask you about a lot of things because Major doesn't really talk about his problems. You just kind of gotta watch and observe and put two and two together. But he's like, I know I don't really ask you about a lot of things, but are you okay? Like, you seem off tonight. So Major like brushes it off, which is not out of character for Nate for Major. But Dante just like reassures him, like, you know, you can talk to me about anything, right? But Major's sitting there like, I don't think I can talk to my best friend about, hey, I might be falling for you without things going wrong. So he pushes that down to the best of his ability. And when Dante like gets up to go to the bathroom, he ends up like calling Dante's name again, and he's like, "Why am I calling this guy's name?" So they're like trying to play it off. He's like, "Can I hear that song again?" So Dante just like hands his phone over to Major. Major already knows the password to his phone. He always has. And he like starts going through his music. So he's playing a song, but he's still looking through like Dante's music just through his playlist and seeing all the names of the playlists, right? And there are like several playlists that are named with like Major in mind. And it just shows Major how much Dante is thinking about him. Even though Major's like kind of still in denial about it. And then he stumbles across a playlist like called First Love. And he kind of like spirals about it because he's like, wait a minute, who's this for? Like, this isn't for me. Does Dante have a girlfriend? Like, I know sometimes I'm at school and I don't know who he's talking to when I'm not around. Like, what is going on here? So when Dante comes back, he like jokingly asks about it. And he's like, Dante just says, like, it's just what I think it would feel like to be in love for the first time. So Major thumping heart settles just like a tiny bit, but it does kind of still stick with him because he's like, oh, it's just a playlist filled with like fluttering butterflies of someone he hasn't met yet. And he, and when Major like still jokes about him, talking about like some, you sure you don't have like a girlfriend somewhere? And Dante's like, you will be the first one to know, and besides, you will probably be the first one to get a girlfriend anyways, because Major does like spend a lot more time talking to females than Dante does hanging out, not hanging out with females, but like dancing with females at parties and things of that nature. So Dante's like, like, it's gonna be you sneaking off one of those girls at one of the parties, and then I'm coming home having to come up with some lame excuse as to why you're not there. And Major's like, home. And Dante's just like, yeah, accepting that his home is Major's home, and it just is that simple. And then Dante's still joking, talking about how now then Major will be spending all his time with his girlfriend while Dante's sitting around making sad little playlists like he's like he's making a soundtrack for a Pixar movie. I should go watch Toy Story 5. Anywho. And Major ends up like slipping, and he just like says, I could never leave you, D. And then Dante gets real quiet. Everything gets real quiet. Except for Major's thumping heart. That does not get quiet. Or his inner monologue because he is spiraling. inside his head, saying to himself like some I can just like go home right now. It's fine. It's fine. It's totally cool. I'd rather just go home. I'll take the beating. It gotta be better than this because he's thinking that I just ruined not 10 years yet. It's 9 years of friendship over saying some gay stuff that I didn't even mean to say. But it's fine because after a moment in response, Dante also says, "Yeah, I don't think I could ever leave you either." Which, since Major spiraling in the other direction, because it's like, wait, he doesn't mean what you think he means. Yeah, no, this isn't that. What am I doing? And then like Dante had already gotten comfortable on the air mattress that Major had blown up. When Major gets up and says like we should go to bed, I'll turn the lights off, and telling Dante like some go to your own bed, and Dante's like, nah man, I'm comfortable. You can sleep in my bed, and Major's like, no, seriously, get up. So Major hits the lights, and he goes back to the air mattress, and he kind of just like shoves Dante, trying to get him up so he can go to his bed. And Dante sits up, and in that like darkness, they're like face to face. And there's this moment where he realizes that they're like staring right at each other, but not seeing each other at all. And he contemplated, he thinks, like, I could do it. I could just lean forward and kiss him right now, but he doesn't. And he decides to hold on to this because he's not willing to risk what he has for what could be. And that's my favorite. I'm about to go. Bye.